Howard, I'm so glad I saved your number. My husband fell at a construction site and is in critical condition. I knew it wasn't safe.
I'm very sorry to hear that. I just want to let you know I'm here to help. Yeah, tell me more about it. Work injuries not only affect the victim, but also everyone around them. Inc. Law is Chicago-based and here to advocate on your behalf. With over 100 attorneys and staff, if you or someone you know has questions about a work injury, call 312-6-million. Injury law made personal. That's Inc. Law.
From your favorite source for Chicago White Sox talk, delivering news, interviews, analysis, and more. This is the Sox Machine Podcast with your hosts, Jim Margulis, James Fegan, and Josh Nelson.
Thanks, Rob, and welcome to the Sox Machine Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Nelson, and it's Sunday night, May 31st, 2026, as we record this episode. Don't stop now, boys. The Chicago White Sox, what a month of May they had. Despite the awful injury news concerning Munetaka Murakami, the White Sox overcame his loss in the lineup to sweep the Detroit Tigers and finish this crucial homestand against two division rivals with a 6-1 record. And man, they were so close to turning that loss to a win. So the White Sox are now 32-27. They've won 5 straight games. They are 20-11 at home, and they are 11-3 against the American League Central, and they are 12-6 in one-run games. After the Chicago Cubs series win, we started to believe in this squad, but now the White Sox are parked by Cleveland by just one game as they head to Minneapolis to start the month of June. Is it time to update our expectations for this 2026 season? If so, how high of a bar do we want to raise it? Also in this episode, White Sox pitching coach Zach Bove, who has been doing a good job in his first season, talks about the White Sox pitchers. We'll also preview the upcoming Twins series as David Sandlin is scheduled to make his second Major League appearance. We'll take a look around Major League Baseball, and I'll chat about one of the greatest upsets in college baseball history that took place this weekend. Let's get started. First, how about Colson Montgomery leads us off?
You know, we're staying within ourselves. We know we have to go out there and we have to earn every single win, you know, because it's the big league. So, you know, nothing's just given. Everything's earned, and we all understand that.
Yeah, I guess there's like with time, does it raise up from what you're saying at Sox Fest? Like we can hang with anybody to like, hey, we have real goals at the end of the year. Like we're a playoff caliber team.
Yeah, I mean, it's everyone's mindset is that we are a playoff caliber team, and the only way to, you know, kind of show that is just go out there and do it, and go out there and earn everything, you know, play our butts off every single day, and that's all it comes down to.
Colson Montgomery and the White Sox are believing they are a playoff caliber team. Is it time for us to take that next step, change our expectations of what this 2026 season will be for the Chicago White Sox when we previewed this season back during spring training in February and March? Joining me, our Sox Machines beat reporter James Fegan and managing editor Jim Margulis. And hello, gentlemen. The White Sox sweep Detroit. We talked about that in our previous episode, Jim. There's a lot going on with Detroit. Clearly, the offense is not clicking at all. Clearly, they're having issues with the bullpen. Things are not looking pretty for the Tigers, and now that conversation of Tarik Skubal possibly getting traded before the deadline becomes very serious. But the White Sox, Jim, just completed a 6-1 homestand. They're 32-27. It's now June 1st. Should we change the way we expected this season to unfold for the White Sox? Is it time to raise the bar of what we hope this season could be?
Certainly. Not just because of what the White Sox are doing, but also because of what the American League looks like, especially the AL Central. The Tigers might have to pack it in. They just might have to call it a year, especially to see what Scuba looks like, but they're out of sorts. The Royals are even a bigger mess. The Twins are starting to fall apart. Like Bailey Ober just got hurt. So it's just hard to see. Yeah, they've been scrappier than I thought. And their starting pitching has covered for their bullpen. Their offense has been okay. Like Byron Buxton did a lot of heavy lifting, but they're hitting the wall when it comes to available players. So right now, it's really just Cleveland ahead of the White Sox, and really the only team the White Sox have to, contend with. I think, like this homestand was important because in order for the White Sox to contend, they have to beat up on the Central, the lesser teams in the Central, and they did that. And that's like the easiest way to take a shortcut to contend is win the games you should win and get a good bullpen performance, and that gets you a lot of the way there. And they're at least handling the division part. So yeah, at this point, until like they have 2 weeks from hell that change the entire outcome or trajectory of their season, even like Munetaka Murakami injury, you having Jacob Gonzalez come in and have some similar shapes in terms of left-handed bat with decent plate discipline and maybe some power, he might be able to hold down the fort for a little bit. So yeah, a lot of reasons to think that the White Sox can hang around, and they should act like it.
James, this is wild because at Sox Fest, I mean, the players certainly believed. Mike Vassell told you during spring training to the beat down in Arizona that he thought this team was going to be better than expected. Colson always believed. Davis thought they would be a lot better coming into this season. Obviously, the players think they always have a chance. Are you hearing any changing of the minds within the White Sox front office or even the coaching staff to start believing in how they have started this season?
You said front office, so now that complicates the answer. Edgar Caro, I talked to him on the phone, I want to say it was January. He brought up playoffs. That was like the first player I remember because that was before spring, and he's saying it still though. Then I followed up on it. And he was like, "Oh, we're not thinking about that. We got to go day by day." And so I feel like I tripped an alarm a little bit by mentioning it too openly. But the front office is, there'd be people who'd be like, you can't ever kind of take any opportunity for granted. Like if you have a real opportunity to contend for the playoffs, you can't be like, well, we're early, so it's going to come later. It's not going to follow this linear trend. And so that's why they're not doing kind of this round of maybe peacocking to be like, we told you so every all over the place. Really, they'll acknowledge that they are a year early, so to speak. Maybe not even putting it in terms of specific years, but if you want to think of obviously it'd be a rosy scenario, but the 2015 Cubs, that team was not expected to be that good that soon. 2016 was more when they thought they would enter that contention, but because they peaked kind of early, then the World Series contender the next year. That probably wasn't the best team to invoke in terms of keeping people grounded, but it generally the idea of some of these good rebuilds that you see go well, one of the indications that they're going to get above the mean of some of the other rebuilds is that you see them kind of starting to already show that they're going to exceed expectations to some degree with their core pieces early. And I think that's what you're fundamentally getting. Hopefully, maybe before the season, you didn't even know Miguel Vargas was a core piece, but to have the sense Colson Montgomery was supposed to be this guy, and is it? And you're getting all these positive signs really off the bat. That's usually what was going to happen if he was going to become that in the first place. So I guess the infrastructure that they're working on and just thinking that they're an operation that's going to become capable of contending on a regular basis. Sure, they would put themselves in position for this one overperformance year. And so I don't think they can kind of dismiss it as we didn't, this isn't when we expect to contend. We can't push any more resources to do it. At the same time, according to their plan of what they're building towards, this wouldn't be this is our chance. We need a rental starter. Bonnemer's on the market, guys. Let's hear your best offers. I don't think they'll necessarily rush into it in that way, but they can't be we'll let it die on the vine. We're not taking this seriously. Coaching staff is all max effort. They're all, if you're a uniform coaching personnel, you're getting evaluated on pretty much every year's performance. So the crop of baseball operations or even the players where it's not we want this to happen as soon as possible because nothing beyond that's necessarily guaranteed to us. I think that's pretty large, and I think that's pretty serious. Hey, this is a real team. We're beating good teams. We're in the playoff spot right now. We're going to keep pushing forward to it, even if they're not saying division or bust or have those type of spoken goals. I think baseball operations wants to respect this while not necessarily being yeah, all our metrics told us this was definitely going to happen, and this is super sustainable, and that we they certainly have the indicators they have to listen to. Like they're more building towards something because like a lot of their organizational strength is still in the minors. But hard to deny. You look at the standings, and my colleague Scott Merkin was saying, certainly talking up their potential, a month ago, and I was probably giving him like a lot of like, okay, all right, type of responses. But the crux of his argument was look at the rest of the AL, who's overtaking them, like who's really making a big charge, and to see the Twins and Tigers roll in and really not look like anything capable of putting on a run. The Royals are way down in the standings as well, and just had Michael Garcia like pull up with a hamstring injury this weekend. Like there certainly doesn't seem like anybody's going to come up from behind them in this AL Central hierarchy. And then if you look at the AL at large, like it's not a huge crop of teams that look like ready to go on a run to overtake them. So just simply where they're at and what they already look capable of, certainly they have like a puncher's chance of being in there by lieu of just being already in the position. And a lot of teams have to play a lot better than they have to overtake them.
White Sox fans, and naturally in our 13 seasons podcasting about the White Sox together, Jim, it is so easy to get dour about this franchise. And I understand where some of those White Sox fans that might be a little hesitant to get excited about what they are seeing right now are looking ahead to the gauntlet that's coming in June. And we'll review the upcoming series in Minneapolis later in this show. But yeah, at Philadelphia and then home against Atlanta and the LA Dodgers, and then on the road to the New York Yankees. I get that. That's a very tough stretch. But man, if they go 500 during that stretch and they hold their ground and they show that they can stay with those teams, Jim, I just feel like the enthusiasm continues to rise. And I don't know what's going to knock it down. I thought Murakami and the bad news that we got that he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks would suddenly make everyone sober, but the White Sox end up winning the next 2 games. And now we get a chance to see if Jacob Gonzalez is for real. They've taken a lot of punches this season. I thought they were knocked down early in April, but you made this point in the past couple episodes. The good teams find a way to kick out, and the White Sox, especially in this series, Jim, kicked out twice. They were behind Friday, and it looked like they were going to lose. Miguel Vargas hits a walk-off homer. They're down 1-0, and then Colson Montgomery comes up with the big home run in the 7th inning, and they scratch another run. So I think, as far as expectations, I guess I'm scared, Jim. Like, there's a part of me that's like, playoffs are bust now, baby. But there's so many games left to go. So much wrong can go in the direction of the White Sox way. But I am holding out for hope here that I think they continue to surprise us, and I think they're going to continue to surprise us through June, even through that tough gauntlet.
Are you so excited but also so scared?
Yes. What is that? There's got to be a German word for it. What is the German word?
Are you on caffeine pills?
Oh man, Excedrin. Yeah, that was hell of a drug.
Did you get a record deal from being recorded and singing in the locker room, and now you have a lot of pressure because tests are also coming up? I think I remember
Saved by the Bell correctly. Yeah, good reference. Good reference.
Yeah. Sounds exciting, like a spike in volleyball. That's one line that just has etched in my brain in terms of like that passed through editing. So when it comes to like what they've done already, like we'll see what happens with this Twin series, but they're 5 games above 500. So I mean, they can go into this gauntlet, take a little bit of a beating, and then still be around 500, and they'll still be in okay shape based on the rest of the league right now. So they're kind of banking games right now. I think that's a point that Dan Szymborski makes all the time when talking about, which teams are changing their ZiPS projections or their rest of season projections, saying like, some of what ZiPS thought might be true, but these games are in the bank and they're already played. And so even if they're a little bit lucky in how they unfolded, like, 2 games where, waiting, outlasting the starter basically, those games count as wins. So they're 5 games above 500. If they somehow get to this gauntlet, like 6 games above 500, they have room to be humbled and still be in okay shape. So that's what's important about what the White Sox just did. And hopefully they can take care of business coming up to just have that going for them. looking at the run differential, now they have the what's it, fourth best run differential in the AL. So like terms of that measure, which they've often fallen short, they're looking, okay there too. So they just have to look okay, basically. That's what the American League looks like right now. They have to be healthy enough to have an idea of who's starting on a given day, and we'll see what David Sandlin does his next time out. But like that was a neat trick, what he pulled his first, his MLB debut. So if they keep coming up with answers, like even if they don't like win every game, but just have an answer for every day in terms of who's going to be playing what position. Jacob Gonzalez. Okay, you have an answer for Murakami being out. Who's going to take the start? David Sandlin? And then he looks great. And just like, okay, maybe that's an answer. Like that's, I think, where the White Sox are, to where like, if they can keep providing decent answers for their questions, then there's a lesser risk of this thing snowballing on them.
Yeah, who's going to play left field? Sam Antonacci? Are you sure about that? I mean, he's looking a lot better. Like, that's another good example. So I guess as far as raising the bar, where the White Sox are today, if they don't finish with more than 81 wins, James, is this season going to be disappointing with where they are on June 1st?
It might have disappointing stretches of it. I think if you'd still probably look at it in balance, as saying, like, you saw enough positive things. Like, realistically, for them to get there, one, you have the Murakami setback that I think people already kind of are bracing themselves for to some degree. Certainly, like, zoomed out, you would be like, well, they missed Kyle Teal for almost half the season, not quite, hopefully not that close to it, but close to 40%. And that the pitching that you really kind of maybe expect to carry them through their contention period, assuming it's happening at this point, which seems safer to say than it did a couple weeks ago. That's probably not really in place yet, and that's probably what I even look at right now, whether it's like maybe the bottom 3 or 4 of their bullpen, or maybe Tyler Davis has shown himself pretty ready for high leverage at this point. But right now, like, the reasons you could see it happening are like the rotation kind of falling apart a little bit, or even if you kind of see like one of your young hitters maybe regress a little bit, you've already kind of seen them like look really good for half a season, where if you zoomed out or taking this from a year, just like from a step that it would represent from the previous year, I think you're in a decent place. Like, you've already seen more of Vargas looking like a starting quality third baseman than he did last year. And I think like so much is kind of arrow up at this point, that like the things that would be disappointing would be injuries, and if there's long-term ramifications if that happens. But I don't think that just because they've done this and shown us this, because of where they're at in their trajectory, you're just kind of like thrilled that you saw it, rather than the fact that they couldn't maintain it when we didn't expect them to do this in the first place, is some sort of like big KO. There's always individual stories that could twist wrong. Certainly we're a lot more uncertain about Shane Smith than we were 2 months ago. He is starting to throw again, but it's weird how they're doing this with him, like kind of out of the picture when he's the open day starter, and not really like a super, like, what was supposed to be like a short option down there. It's kind of really dragged on. But that's just another, like, one tangent you can maybe go on that isn't really what people are talking about defining the season. I think so far you've kind of seen them have this stretch for this long, and certainly every sign that they're going to do it, or they're in there, is have this good environment with their clubhouse where they at least position themselves to overperform a little bit or take advantage of the AL being down. I think even seeing this for the stretches maybe a little bit more than, or at least as much as we were hoping it to see at any point this year. Maybe we thought we'd see it maybe in the last 2 months, in the way that the last 2 months last year felt like the best stretch of the season. But I think because of where the White Sox are coming from, it feels a little like, yeah, you want them to keep this going and keep in trajectory, and see that, like, why can't they sneak into the back of the playoffs or in a wild card slot, or even obviously the stretch goal would be the division at this point. I think even this is like more than we could have hoped for at the start of the year, as far as like really encouraging signs stacked on top of each other.
It's funny because when we looked at the way that the season was going to end, 3 games at Cleveland, and then a 4-game home series against Detroit, and then 3 at Kansas City before coming home against Colorado. At the beginning of the part of the season, Jim, you could say, well, that's a tough stretch for the White Sox. But now, knowing what we know about Detroit and Kansas City, the way that they end the season, 4 at home, against Detroit, 3 at Kansas City, and then 3 against Colorado. Man, that gets me excited. Like, again, we're looking ahead and maybe a little too far ahead. And to Edgar Caro's point, maybe we should just take this game by game. But it's really hard to not be excited. I'm just so happy on how quickly things have turned around. This has been very unexpected in the best way possible.
Yeah, I mean, my attitude towards the trade deadline is somewhat similar in terms of let's see what's available and what the White Sox actually need and where they are. Like jumping the market too soon when they don't know exactly what might fall apart on them is ill-advised. And, you know, in order to force a trade, you probably give up something you don't want. And like I've brought up the James Shields trade a couple times in terms of rushing to prop up something that couldn't be supported. So I think like waiting until the deadline or waiting until like the draft and then the All-Star break and seeing who's buying and who's selling and where maybe like a small addition might have an disproportionate effect is probably the way to go. But yeah, it's a big test coming up, give you some idea of where they are. And then, Kyle Teal, hopefully, when he gets back on a rehab stint, say like if it actually sticks, give an idea of whether he'll be around for the rest of the season or whether it's just always going to be a case of, do you have to hold your breath every time he runs full bore to first base like you had to with Yohan Moncada and company? Like, is that kind of season for him? A lot of ways this can shake out to where, yeah, you do have to take it a series at a time or a week at a time, even as cliche as that might sound, because they are a little bit in unexplored territory with exactly what their ceiling is at this point. Like, I think they can still add, like they did nothing in the offseason, right? They added Murakami, but in terms of like, they did not have ambitions in the offseason until Murakami fell into their laps and they thought, okay, and then if we get rid of Robert, we can start adding things, but they weren't looking to change the shape of their team with their offseason until they got lucky. So like, we don't know what it's like with the concentrated efforts on making the team better. So I think you look at their immediate ceiling for 2026 and then kind of going into the winter, depending on how business of baseball shakes out, just exactly where to push with hopefully more revenue, hopefully better ratings, and just a better outlook for what the White Sox want to spend.
So we mentioned Murakami. Again, he is out for the next 4 to 6 weeks with that hamstring injury. That is a pretty big bummer. Jacob Gonzalez made his MLB debut on Sunday. He had a key hit in that 7th inning, moving Chase Maidroth from first to second base, and then Maidroth scored the game-winning run off of Tristan Peters' go-ahead RBI single. Gonzalez played first base, James. Is he the primary first baseman, or is this going to be some type of platoon situation where Vargas is going to be bouncing back between the corners, third and first?
It sounds like platoon orientation. That's all that Venable promised to him early on, was that he would start against, well, not to him personally, but to us. I don't know what he said to Jacob. Jacob seems pretty okay with anything. But he said that we're going to start out, that's what his playing time is going to be against right-handed starters. It sounds like a little, conditional to him playing well and showing things. And I think his at-bat Sunday certainly gave him reason to keep going. But it doesn't even, I think both him and Riku are a little bit on that wavelength of, well, this is what we have right now. Here's your opportunity runway to do it. But we're not committing like, hey, this is for sure our plan for out. And like, I think Riku has to prove it sticks a little bit. And Jacob, obviously he has this more defined window with Murakami out, but has an opportunity to maybe stake a claim that his bat has value of keeping around beyond that in some other role. Or, if he struggles and seems like he needs more seasoning at AAA, I think with them already probably not starting him against left-handed guys, there's other ways to other alignments to kind of force their way through, whether it's through the DH somehow or some other position cycle down from there. Randall Grichuk hitting against righties more, or, the return of Austin Hayes creating more formulations. I think it's a little bit more performance oriented, or at least driven, than kind of the call-ups that like when Colson came up last year, was clear he's just going to play every day, no matter what, because they had made that decision to transition it for him. So it feels like the other prospect they've used so far this year, where it's definitely filling a need, but it has to show that it can stick a little bit.
Got it. Well, I think a big factor for the White Sox with Murakami not being in the lineup, Jim? Or I guess the big question is, do they have enough offense to pick up the slack? And they had enough against Detroit, and it sure helps when Miguel Vargas and Colson Montgomery continue to hit home runs. It's a big loss from a power perspective, Jim, and especially on an on-base perspective, because Murakami was taking his walks. But do you think that there's enough players right now hitting for the White Sox to make up the loss of Murakami?
I think we've seen the White Sox diversify their offense a little bit. Came out real homer heavy, and I think they still are to a large degree, but partially because they're hitting homers. Sometimes that stat of runs driven in per homers can be like a little bit bad when it's like, you need to hit the ball over the fence and nothing's scoring. But also, like, if you're hitting as many homers as the White Sox are, at least in the middle of the order, that's kind of what you want. Guys getting on base for those guys hitting homers, and the offense looks functional. So I think if the White Sox offense is going to continue to score runs similar to what they've done up to this point, I think it's you downshift in terms of power a little bit, but you still have that ability to keep the line moving. And that's why I'm curious to see what Gonzalez does, because like he's got the plate discipline part of it. If he can make pitchers respect him, and like first 3 plate appearances were fine, like couple well-struck fly balls, just got under a little bit, and then shot the single and looked on time, looked like he was swinging at good pitches. So if he has an idea of what he's doing, even if he doesn't possess Murakami grade power, if he helps move the ball around, make outfielders turn around, and help work pitchers and make them throw pitches, draw walks, get on base, you might see enough of that offense that just keeps the line moving. You can start a rally from anywhere. It doesn't necessarily look imposing in any inning, but you can't count him out from starting something, like the way we've seen Tristan Peters be somebody who can start an inning or finish an inning in some cases with his bat. So I think as long as there's enough modularity in the lineup to where you can have lefties against righties and righties against lefties, enough key situations, and Venable doesn't have to like pinch hit in the 4th inning and go through all his options by the time the high leverage guys come in, and they can just bring in a lefty or righty, whatever they need to neutralize the threatening hitter in the lineup, then they can at least hang. And I think it ups the pressure on Colson and Vargas doing what they've been doing. But if they can hold up, I think there's at least enough professional approaches here to where they might take somewhat of a hit, but maybe go to that Cleveland model of scoring 4 runs a game, and maybe they don't score 10 runs all that often, but if the starting pitching is holding up, enough chances to win.
And speaking of Vargas and Montgomery, we talked about it in our past podcast episode. If you didn't get a chance to check it out, Jim and I were talking about how Montgomery was heating up because he had 3 straight 2-hit games against the Minnesota Twins. Montgomery has now hit a home run in back-to-back games, so he continues to really swing well. Both Montgomery and Miguel Vargas rank 2nd in the American League in terms of WAR, according to Fangraphs, at the respected positions. Colson Montgomery is the 2nd best shortstop in the American League behind Bobby Witt Jr., and Miguel Vargas is the 2nd best 3rd baseman in the American League. What a turnaround for Miguel Vargas. I know he's one of your favorites, James, as you mentioned in your latest appearance on The Score, but how much things could change in just a couple of seasons, and Miguel Vargas seems to be that case study.
It's kind of, you don't want to like be selfish about it and say this is more about their ability to improve hitters long term, and says more about their player development engine, and saying that's the big story, because people who perform like them don't just grow on trees, and both were pretty lauded prospects who, they were at least at one point viewed as pretty good hunks of clay to work with, and they certainly went through their down times, but I think a lot of it is clearly them and the work that they put in, or the approach they took, or their willingness to kind of fight through discouragement to keep getting better. But at the same time, like, they're creating these like kind of power hitting monsters who can play on the infield, and certainly have other people who, if this success is recreatable, can really round up a lineup that has more depth than we probably thought when it was just about like, all right, who outside of like Colson Montgomery and Brady Montgomery are going to be like the big power hitters, and everyone else is like a little bit in the average territory. So right now they're playing at a level that I think they stand up to any like really, and I think we've written about this already, just like any top three, certainly in their division, they look as strong as building blocks as anyone, with the only uncertainty that, Murakami isn't signed past this year, which I'm sure people are aware of or have brought up in private discussions among themselves at some
No,
point.
we have not talked about that at all.
But, to be flippant about that, maybe if you can develop these guys offensively, you can develop your own, like, capable, not a Murakami, but someone who can play first base and, like, give you credible offense from there in a way where you're not, if this guy walks out or in some way, like you'll never find a hitter again, which it might have felt like if he rolled in here in like 2022.
Join us next, the Chicago White Sox pitching coach Zach Bove, to talk about the White Sox pitching staff. White Sox pitching coach Zach Bove spoke with the media on Sunday to share his thoughts about the progress of how the White Sox pitchers have been performing in 2026, and for some, how they are recovering from injury. Just like the case with rookie pitcher Noah Schultz, who is in the IL due to a knee injury, Bo provided an update on Schultz and how this downtime can be used to learn more lessons and how Schultz can become an effective major league pitcher.
Obviously, like a little break, right? Making sure that everybody feels good. But pen went well today. Had a little touch and feel a couple of days ago. So see how he recovers, and another pen from there. We have this like sample size of at the major league level of things that work, right, things that haven't. So we're like actively like kind of working on some things that we feel is going to help him once he kind of returns to games.
Anthony Kay had a terrific month of May. In 6 starts, Kay was 4-0 with a 1.95 earned run average, as he had 27 strikeouts and just 10 walks in 32 1/3 innings. The adjustments that Kay and Bove have been working together on have been working tremendously.
Yeah, it's been awesome, right? Like, I mean, obviously the on-field results for him are great, but for our team, we made a clear, like, some variables we changed, and now you're seeing those results, specifically against the right-handed hitters. So, like, he deserves all the credit. He's executing it, and it's been cool to see his success. Like, development never stops. Doesn't stop at the major league level, and, like, Anthony was struggling, he would be the first to say. So, like, we got the group together, a lot of smart people in this org, and, like, hey, we got to make a change, right? Because if we keep doing the same thing, we're going to expect the same result. So, totally open to it, right? And so, like, Schultz sees that, right? All these other guys, to your point, see that. So it's like, yeah, we're going to make changes if we feel confident in it, and like, hey, they worked out. They don't always work out, but like, we'll take it.
Grant Taylor continues to excel, and I'm happy that he's been used in late inning situations because his dominance has been a factor in those close games for the White Sox, especially improving their one-run record. In 23 appearances so far in 2026, Taylor has a 2.12 earned run average, as he has 44 strikeouts to just 9 walks in 29 2/3 innings. Yet Bove and the White Sox are still learning how much Taylor can handle.
We're very in tune to all the guys, but specifically with him, of like how he's recovering, how he's feeling, whether that's like on the field, right, whether it's delivery stuff, metric stuff, obviously conversations with the training room and that whole department to make sure he's in a good spot from a workload perspective, because obviously we want him to pitch every game, but also his health is the number one priority, so making sure he's in a good spot, we're not jeopardizing any of that.
Of course, it's odd by now not to mention Davis Martin at this point, but boasting a 2.00 earned run average in 11 starts. Who isn't impressed with Davis Martin? But Bove is impressed with how Martin mentally still remains inning to inning in each of his starts.
It's great. Like it's just, he has such a like refreshing kind of take on it. In the moment, the conversations here in the dugout, again, he hasn't had any bad innings, but if he gives up a run or something, it's just like, hey, on to the next one, right? So I think that's a big part of it. His work weeks, like, as good as he's been, like, we're still like, hey, we got to get better. We're just holding him to that standard, and like, he's obviously easy to do that. But yeah, it's been remarkable, and like, he deserves it. He just has a way of going about it that, like, just, when bad things happen, it's like, okay, cool. What can I learn from it? Let me move on. Where maybe other guys maybe dwell on it a little bit, maybe affects their next inning, next pitch. Like, he can just clear it really good and make the adjustment at a very fast pace. Davis is becoming a leader, not only on his performance, but
open to sharing tips and situations, right? He's kind of, he had some experiences, some good, some bad, and like the guys gravitate to him. Like I've learned from him, so he's just a great resource across the board.
We'll be talking about David Sandlin in a moment as we share our expectations of him in his second start. But Bove shared what his first impressions are of the White Sox rookie.
Well, if he doesn't throw a no-hitter next start, then he'll be a failure. So, no, it was great for him to have that success, especially as a debut, right? That's pretty special. But, it's like, hey, enjoy it, right? The next day is just like, hey, what do we learn from it? What went well? What are some things we can do better, right? And then it's on to the next week. Obviously, he's facing the same team, so we're not going to, overthink that. But, he's kind of familiar with those guys. They're familiar with him. But we're still trying to find ways to get better.
With all of this pitching success, the White Sox are achieving these results without opening day starter Shane Smith, who's still out with an injury. Bove has provided an injury update on Smith.
He just started throwing again last week and stuff like that. So the process is just building up, really shut down for a little bit, had the shoulder heal up and everything. But he's just in the beginning stages of the throwing progression.
An unsung hero on this White Sox team to start 2026 has been reliever Bryan Hudson. He's been nails for the White Sox out of the bullpen. In 29 appearances, Hudson has a 1.26 earned run average, covering 28 and 2/3 innings as he has 28 strikeouts, despite at times only throwing 92 miles an hour.
Another great story, right? We were talking the other day, man, where would we be without Huddy? Just the ability to pitch in, the 9th, the 7th, against any hitter, specifically to the righties, right? He's been awesome. Obviously had a good run with the Brewers, and then last year didn't have that success, but to find it again, he's been a great addition to the team.
So what is the magic behind Hudson's fastball success?
The answer is deception, right? And that's what the industry has a hard time quantifying, calculating, but hitters just don't see it, right? So it's kind of the slot, the angle, the way he hides the baseball. It's not just one thing, it's a combination of all those factors that makes the four seam really special.
It's a question that will continue to come up for the Chicago White Sox. General Manager Chris Getz will speak to reporters in Minneapolis this week, but Bove shares if he knew just how good this White Sox team could be.
Definitely experienced it on the second half, like you said. Man, this team, the energy that they're playing with, the results, they were tough to deal with. And then spring training, it was just I think me getting to understand them getting to understand me, and maybe our first couple weeks we didn't start off great, but I think that's just part of it, right? You have to work through those things. Obviously, we're playing really good right now, and I think that's just a better understanding of, hey, putting guys in right roles, understanding how to talk to them. Every guy's a little different. Every guy's a little different puzzle. So it's just the comfortability part of it has been big.
Now rejoining me are James Fegan and Jim Margulis as we preview the upcoming series as the Chicago White Sox head to Minneapolis, Minnesota. The Twins are 27-33, and they're third place in the American League Central. They're 6.5 games back of Cleveland. They're 5.5 games back of the White Sox. But the Twins are starting to slide. They have lost their last 5 games. They just got swept, if not mopped, by the Pittsburgh Pirates. They are 4-6 in their last 10 games. Your pitching probables for this series Monday night at 6:40 p.m. Central Time. It'll be another tough test. This is the second time the White Sox will be going up against Joe Ryan. It'll be David Sandlin making his second start for the White Sox on Monday. Tuesday night at 6:40 p.m. Central Time, the Dart, Davis Martin takes the ball against lefty Connor Prelip. And then on Wednesday afternoon, getaway day, this is a 12:40 p.m. Central Time first pitch. Eric Fetty against Taj Bradley, which Taj Bradley has been throwing the ball real well for the Twins. We are sending James up to Minneapolis to cover this series, so huge thank you to all of our Sox Machine subscribers for making this possible. Again, if you are not a Sox Machine subscriber, if you'd like to join and unlock all access to our coverage of the Chicago White Sox, Major League Baseball, and the upcoming MLB draft, sign up at soxmachine.com/products. And what a great way, Jim, to plug the subscription discount that we have ongoing. So where is it at now?
The winning record sale, it's now 54 cents for your first month as of today, because the White Sox have won 54% of their games. A little bit of a gamble. You can wait a day, see if it drops 1 penny, or it just might keep getting more expensive with the way they're playing. Inflation I guess it's the good kind of inflation, but either way, yeah, it's been a success thus far. I think we've added something like 160 new subscribers over the past month, or since we've, a lot of it since we've started it. So thank you to everybody who's subscribed, and please keep it coming, because the more subscribers we get, the more we can do. And it's really exciting.
Now, we heard from pitching coach Zach Bove, James, that if Sandlin doesn't throw a no-hitter on Monday, he's regressing. Obviously, he was joking about that. But in his second start, what would be some reasonable expectations of David Sandlin?
He wasn't joking, Josh. And I think the reasonable expectation is double-digit strikeouts.
It's a no-hitter. Okay, awesome.
Well, something I was talking to Bove about a couple days earlier was just, at some point, theoretically, he's going to have to pitch out of the stretch, which will be his first time in the major leagues. But that was like kind of the element, coming in that he was less consistent about, just because like his windup is so pronounced, it's just going to be a fundamentally different move. And so he said like his bullpen in between starts is, if he's not pitching at all out of the stretch, it's significantly more than it usually is, just because he didn't rep it at all. So that's the thing that they're really focused on. Talking to Sandlin a little bit, but like, it was 4 strikeouts. One of them came on this like really nasty looking sinker, or at least it was tagged on the sinker as a broadcast in 93, and it dived down. And he was saying that like that was actually his kick change that hit 93, and that if he had friends texting him like, that'd be amazing if you could get a sinker to make that kind of movement, but instead that's his changeup. His sinker is a little bit different. Those are still, though, the 2 elements that have really been his big, the things he's worked on this season, is just like pitches that move arm side, really for both handedness. Like the kick change is the real weapon that he's needed to like face lefties who are, historically have fared a lot better with him. And the sinker is just something like he added because all of a sudden they taught him a way where he could throw arm side in some way. So he wanted to do something to keep back righties up as well. Because as he's summed up in the past, he's really good at making things go left. He's not good at making things go right. And so this is just like a dimension to his game he's been trying to build out. So those are kind of the things that have been, up to this point, you'd think in progress, but it's hard to really see them based on, he's looked really good, obviously, in his last AAA outing. And then we really don't see him getting these kind of in much trouble at all in his first start, which is great. And maybe you can just do that again. But those are kind of the elements of like being able to locate that change up, being able to like back up righties with that sinker, and then holding his velo in command when he goes out of stretch. Those are the things for watch from him. You actually want reasonable expectations, though, so I think the overriding like sentiment from the pitching staff is about like, hey, we just need to keep it close because our offense is great. Now, obviously that approach takes a ding with Murakami, but like they want him to get through 5 innings. That's kind of like what he was really, based on what he had gotten up into in the minors, you expected he stretched out to. I think the idea that he could get through that in 80 pitches, which is probably what he's about allotted this time out, maybe a little more, maybe 85, 90, but he really he didn't get much closer his last time out. That's kind of what you hope, and the results will kind of dictate if he can do that. I think probably can, and I think 5 innings, 3 allowed, probably the White Sox walk away from it being pretty happy that kept them the game. At the same time, when we talked earlier about guys like Riku or guys like Jacob Gonzalez who have maybe this runway to grab onto a role, Noah Schultz threw a bullpen on Sunday. He's supposed to throw another one after that, and I think after those 2, the next one is when the conversation about when he starts to return to actions comes. So sure, maybe reasonable expectations for Sandlin are something that just keeps him in the game, but obviously if he pitches well, that he's as well as he has his last 2 times out, this is conceivably a 1 to 2 start window to maybe say, I maybe give you your best chance staying up here, and another person gets considered or who gets bumped out of the rotation. It'd be pretty easy if Sandlin's up and down, just be like, well, he's just still got an option. He was still building up. Let's just send him to AAA and give him a chance to get going.
Sure.
But this is certainly like a foot in the door that he could, take advantage of if he continues to perform like, the guy who threw a no-hitter. So, I think that Bove is right. He has to throw a no-hitter on Monday.
So it's an audition. So Sandlin's auditioning for
everything's
a
an
spot
audition,
in
but
the starting rotation.
certainly true for him, I think, in this window.
Jim, any concern about a quick turnaround for Sandlin facing the same Minnesota Twins lineup?
Maybe a little bit, but I think, like James said, it's more a matter of he'll look different if there's pressure, or there might be an opportunity to look different as soon as like they put two runners on, and he has to worry about managing a running game as well as executing his pitches with command in sequencing, maybe in ways he's not used to doing. So yeah, there's going to be more on his plate here, but I think he just got exceptionally lucky in his first start to just not have any chances for an inning to get away from him. Like he pitched well, obviously, but also like the contact that he did allow found gloves every single time to where nothing got complicated on him after the first inning. So yeah, it's going to be harder, but just hard to tell. I think it was such an aberration, I think, for your first outing to be like that, that you can't necessarily say, oh, Twins made him work harder. Obviously they figured something out. It could be just like, that's the way it happened because he had base runners for the first time in his major league career.
Well, we'll see how Sandlin fares in that first start. I'm excited for Davis Martin make his 12th start of the season. We'll see how Eric Fedde does. I mean, Fedde is still giving up the home run. Any chance of the White Sox use another opener? I don't think it'd be necessary, right? Because the Twins are pretty right-handed heavy.
You'd be surprised if they throw an opener to have like Brandon Eisert face Byron Buxton. Like that doesn't seem like let's set this up on purpose.
Yeah, right.
Maybe if they were healthier, there's some lefties they could scare you with. Matt Wallner was like good and not in AAA like he is right now, but it seems like I have a hard time seeing that happening for Buxton.
Got it. All right. So we'll see what Fedde does. Again, the home run has been an issue for Eric Fedde, but after he gives up a home run, I mean, he's been pretty solid for the White Sox, helping them stay in the game. It is a tough for the offense. I mean, Joe Ryan's been throwing really well. Taj Bradley has been throwing really well. So hopefully the White Sox offense picks up the slack without Murakami in the lineup against the Twins' two best starting pitchers. And hopefully it's still a tight game to face that Twins bullpen. The White Sox really capitalize against the Twins bullpen in the series back home in Chicago. We'll be recapping this series in our midweek episode, so you'll be able to check that out and see how the White Sox fared. But again, James will be in Minneapolis, so follow him on social media at JR Fegan. We'll have more videos and interviews from Minneapolis as well that you can check out not only on SoxMachine.com and our writing, but in the upcoming podcast episode, and also our videos on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/SoxMachine. So with this being the Monday episode, it's time to take a look around Major League Baseball, but I'm going to start because I'm going to bring up something from the college baseball perspective. A little bit of history, one of the greatest upsets ever in college baseball postseason history. St. Mary's, the 4 seed in the Los Angeles Regional, beat UCLA not once, but twice. The number 1 overall seed UCLA Bruins are knocked out despite winning 51 regular season games, one of the best regular seasons in recent memory. But UCLA is no longer in the postseason, and their dreams of reaching Omaha for the College World Series are dashed. Rock Chalowski was 2 for 12 in regionals with just 2 singles, and in his college career in the NCAA postseason, regionals, super regionals, and last year's College World Series, Rock Chalowski finishes 11 for 47, all singles, no extra base hits. That is a .234 batting average. And what does that mean for the MLB draft? That's a little tease. I'll be writing more about this in the upcoming draft report. But Jim, my position has shifted from our previous episodes in March where we did that video on YouTube where I said you can go to Grandstand and get your Rock Chalowski jerseys. And if you listened to me and you did that, I am so sorry because you'll be sweating from now until draft day to see if that's who the White Sox take number 1 overall. We know the White Sox were in attendance in Los Angeles this weekend. But yeah, I don't know. And I guess that makes this draft now interesting, is I don't know what's going to happen in the next 6 weeks.
Yeah, I suppose the good thing is that the White Sox look a lot different on the infield to where all of a sudden, do they need a shortstop who, above all else, or can they pick the best player available, if that best player is Von Lackey, does that make sense? If they could pick the best prep player available, even though it's on a longer development timeline, perhaps that makes sense. Even, and then, people might say, well, you drafted Billy Carlson last year, but it's a case where trades might need to happen. And so, might be a trade that need to happen anyway if they drafted Chalowski. So, if they draft Grady Emerson this time around, they have options for augmenting their roster without like dealing from depth that could just like undercut them when they try to figure out next iterations to make a better lineup. So on one hand, disappointing, I think, that there isn't that obvious 1-1 pick, because I think that just makes it a lot more exciting to follow. On the other hand, it makes it a lot more interesting, or a lot more nuanced for discussing it and trying to figure it out and think along with them, because there are a lot of ways to first guess it, second guess it, and as we know with draft coverage and draft retrospectives, second guessing is basically a lot of it, and realizing like, oh, we should have seen that, and you're kind of you might be dodging a bullet here, or it could be prospect fatigue and Chalowski turns out to be fine. But yeah, a lot more interesting from just a drama standpoint, or a fascination with the human condition versus the easiest answer.
A lot's changed since the White Sox won that draft lottery. When they did, it was a monumental part of this rebuild, right? Like this has got to be franchise-altering decision the White Sox make. First overall, because they're still rebuilding.
Need that quick timetable, yeah.
And now look at us. We're talking about, can this team make the playoffs this year? Colson Montgomery is the second best shortstop in the majors. Vargas is the second best third baseman. Caleb Bonnemer is a top 15 prospect according to MLB.com. And you still got Sam Antonacci, and they like Chase Mydroth. Mydroth's a one-war player. It's not as important now. That's how quickly things have changed in the best way possible for the White Sox. Remember last year, Mike Rizzo was still in charge of the Nationals' #1 overall pick until he got fired days before the MLB draft. And then all of a sudden it became Eli Willett's first overall. So we'll see what the White Sox do, but let's all be flexible in the next 6 weeks when it comes to what the White Sox will do first overall. But how fun would it be if the White Sox find themselves first place in the American League Central and also having the #1 pick? That would be a lot of fun. All right, it's your guys' turn. Around Major League Baseball, Jim, what is catching your attention?
The Mariners, 6 wins in a row. The A's look like they're starting to fall apart in the sense that they gave up 13 runs an inning to the Yankees and just they're back below 500. We kind of thought, or you kind of look like the Mariners based on the way they played last year, based on the roster, their rotation, pretty stout up and down. And they had Cal Raleigh got off to a terrible start, but they've had some weaknesses here and there, but seem like they have enough in the lineup and in the rotation to overcome a slow start, and they might be doing it. And if this is what they are, then White Sox can be glad that they're off the schedule because they played all their games against the Mariners. But also, does anybody in the AL West, do they have a chance to challenge that kind of Mariners team? And right now it doesn't really look like it.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of the Rangers. I think James was right. I think it was a month ago I asked him, are the Astros dead? And it seems like they're probably dead. But you make a good point. Maybe Seattle will finally take reins of the American League West and run away with it. James, how about you, man? What's catching your attention around Major League Baseball?
Is it cheating to be like kind of transfixed by the disaster that the Tigers look like, since that was just in front of my face all weekend?
No.
But they're very banged up. The back half of their lineup really doesn't have much. And Riley Green, even one of their better hitters, is strangely not hitting for power and had 4 home runs on the year or something strange. McGonigal's good, but he's not 900 OPS good right now. Casey Mize was overperforming, and now he went on the IL on top of already missing Skubal. They just seem desperate a little bit this weekend, and I think it makes sense from a record standpoint, but pulling like Kerry Carpenter after like 1.5 rehab games and the way they did, just so you could like get up to face Burke, and then like the way they like managed Sunday with like we got a 1-0 lead and we're going to like mash the button on like our leverage options as opposed to like riding out the good start that we're getting. Just looked very like we need this one type of intensity, and like the answers post game from AJ Hinch that were being angrily shared on the Detroit Tigers media circles was very much like, yeah, we were just trying to win the ball game. They seem very like strained, having like contributed their looked at their prospect list in the past. Like both the bats I liked and the bats I thought overrated aren't really performing that well. And like Max Clark, I think he'll be really good, but doesn't look like he's currently going to contribute, which is, or at least not imminently, like, which is not a knock because he's 21 in AAA, but he's, just kind of okay there right now. And Bryce Rainier is striking out like nearly 40% of the time. Like Jose Braceno is like had surgery that he's still recovering from. It's Max Anderson is kind of plateauing the way I thought he might a little bit in AAA. Like so, like there's not like this obvious like stud in the minors bat to press go. Like Javier Baez is like, because Cubs media checks on him every time he comes in town, but like his rehab seems very stalled. Like there just doesn't seem to be like an easy answer for where the help is coming from, and obviously it's like kind of a compounding bad situation that has a lot of reasons to it, on top of like Framber Valdez looking to like kind of just okay, and that being their big signing on Saturday. Obviously some of the heat's like coming on AJ Hinch in a way that like previously, even when the Tigers were just okay, they always kind of were come off or portrayed or covered as a team that was being coached beyond their potential a little bit, or like even seasons where they were just kind of floating around 500, usually their success there was attributed to like the level of play that AJ Hinch had brought them up to, or at least played a big hand in it. They're angry with him right now. Like the goodwill that seemed to just be oozing out of every kind of like Tigers media for like how they're being run at the end of 2024. That's not the way they're being covered right now. And so it's interesting to see in terms of like things that we wouldn't have predicted 2-3 months ago. I think the way the vibes, the way that around the Tigers, I don't know if we could have seen this kind of I imagine at least a decent crop of our off-season plan projects, or any predictions we got from readers was predicting the Tigers to win the division. So yeah, that's curdled fast. A warning shot to us as well, with man, things have been getting better and better for the last few weeks, and this will just keep happening in perpetuity. I think probably the encouraging thing from talking to like Sox execs is that they know like anyone who talks with certainty or says like, yeah, we showed you, they get proven wrong pretty quickly. So this is certainly the crest of the wave of the White Sox, but I don't know what the term is for what state of the wave the Tigers are in right now, but underwater in some form.
I think it's going back to last podcast when we talked about how they had the same second half record as the White Sox last year, and whether that's portended like this year. And I think there have been enough injuries to where you can't say, well, I knew Skubal was going to get hurt, and I knew that the whole rotation was kind of going to go down with them. But you remind me of the deadline that they had last year, where they didn't really push. They just kind of added veterans. They kind of added quantity, but not necessarily quality. And people were on Scott Harris a bit for saying like, you didn't want to push with this window, with coming off or what will be a second consecutive postseason appearance. Isn't this when you really start adding and really, the first one might be considered lucky, when they kind of had that big September, but this is more like you expect to be here, right? And how come you're not acting like this is one of those years where we expect it to work? And I guess that could be a lesson for the White Sox as they look to this deadline and try to figure out how much to push. Is like, if you're kind of coasting through a half and it's not going well, like you can't assume that you'll hit your projections the following year. So if the White Sox look like they can add, I wonder if that's going to be in the back of their mind of just this. All it takes is a couple targeted injuries and just the missing a couple hitters, or hitters not doing exactly what you want. I mean, like McGonigal and Dingler hitting as well as they are, you would think they'd be in great shape, and they're just not. So, and then to the point where they're pulling Montero after 65 pitches. Like I looked up after that game, or after he left, not being all that familiar with him in terms of his arc to where like, are they easing him back from an injury? Are they working him for an innings limit? No, he pitched in the 7th multiple times this year. And no signs of warning. And it just came off as real sweaty managing of just the Tommy boy, Chris Farley of like, I need that sale. And he just tries to be so precious about it till he crushes it. And that's what it reminded me of. And yeah, it's probably in Hinch's case, it's damned if you, damned if you don't, but I'm thinking of like there have been Davis Martin starts to where he could theoretically go another inning, but the way the contact was starting to shape up on him the inning before, you understand why Venable switched, and like just wasn't signs of that. So where he had a real good reason. So yeah, it was very much a Yankees would call it a binder based reasoning of just going by what the front office tells them to do. And I don't know if it's that bad in Detroit, but certainly it's that, where people start to say like, where's your feel for just how things are going and why are we not seeing the same thing, fans are as even the White Sox players were, because I guess, they were surprised to have a reliever in the 7th. But yeah, it's a strange turn, but also some of it could maybe be foreseen if you do believe that windows can shift and windows can kind of ebb and flow, and they might have been in an ebb when they didn't realize it.
Man, New Yorkers really hated that binder.
Yeah.
Maybe the Sox, it's not necessarily comparable, but the Twins just left Joe Ryan in too long. Not like that. You understand why they do it. He was absolutely cruising, and their bullpen didn't provide. Doesn't feel like you're upgrading necessarily to pull Ryan, but maybe that's a little bit of your reputation is like you see like a great starter get left in too long the series before you, and on top of all the other reasons they're already panicking. Like that's another thing weighing in the mind that the White Sox building some reputation for rallying late, or at least punishing starters late in games over time. Word travels fast.
What a great reputation. Again, more positive things about this White Sox team. How exciting. Let's see how this upcoming series goes in Minneapolis. Again, James will be there covering the series for us, but that will do it for this episode of the Sox Machine Podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you just discovered the Sox Machine Podcast, you subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts, such as Spotify and Apple Music. I already plugged our YouTube channel, but again, you can check out our videos on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Sox Machine. We also post our videos on our Instagram, which you can follow us on Instagram at Sox Machine. You can follow James at JR Fegan. You can follow me at Sox Machine_Josh on all the social media platforms, including Blue Sky, which we are at SoxMachine.com on Blue Sky. James is at jrfegan.soxmachine.com, and I am josh.soxmachine.com on Blue Sky. As we mentioned earlier in the show, we still have the subscription sale, so take advantage of it today. Go to soxmachine.com/products to sign up. Again, the first month is 54 cents. The next month is $5. And that $5 month subscription gets you the ad-free version of both the podcast and the website, unlocks the comment section, and you get all of our coverage, the Chicago White Sox, Major League Baseball, and the upcoming MLB draft. We also have several different tiers of support, so if you want more, you can get more from us, including our Veterans Committee, be part of the very, very active group chat that's been going on in the VC. Everyone's super excited, asking really good questions that we can go and try to get that information from the White Sox. So again, go to soxmachine.com/products and sign up today. The Sox Machine Podcast is a production of SoxMachine.com. You're on for all things Chicago White Sox baseball and part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Alongside James Fegan and Jim Margulis, I'm Josh Nelson. Thanks for listening and watching.